Hello. As we put the question to rest about to tithe or not to tithe, let's remember that tithing is not a get rich quick scheme. It's not an overnight success, and it's not a guarantee of anything other than you are aligning yourself with the principles of God and as it relates to prosperity and your financial success. And I don't mean to say that lightly because that is a huge thing. To be disciplined enough to tithe, to give to God, is going to change everything about you. Like I told you in the first two videos. And if you have not seen the first two, you need to go find them and you need to make sure that you watch them, like, subscribe. But back to what we're talking about. It's not an overnight success. It's not a get rich quick scheme. What tithing is, it is about you answering the call to obedience, trusting God. It is unimaginable that we could trust God with things that we can't see, that we could trust God to wash away our sins, to help us renew our mind, to help us become a better person, and then not trust that same God with our money. And I know what you're probably saying is that it's not God, but it's the people. So let's address that, because for tithing to work, number one, tithing is a covenant between you and God. And as long as you are giving, God will always protect and always watch. Trust and believe. I have been in places where it was not conducive. I have been in situations. I came out and was delivered out of a cult. Yes, I said it. It's not something you want to admit, because to be in a cult means that somebody manipulated you successfully into thinking that you were doing something that really wasn't beneficial. And being the person I am with everything, that is not the easiest thing to admit, but hey, those are the facts. And when I say a cult, no, we were not sleeping and staying in the same place. I was free to go home. I was free to go back and forth. However, the way that it operated was a cult. And I'll talk about it in another video. So stay tuned. Stay in touch with Candid with Kim. And I'll talk to you about what makes a modern day church a cult, because they are still operating. I was so surprised when I moved and joined ministry in 2005, moved to Texas and joined one of the greatest ministries. I was so surprised to hear that there were different places that were still operating like a cult, and they are. So we will address that. But when I was in a cult and I was giving, and I was giving my tithes and giving my offering, God himself, as he always does, because he still talks to us, you do understand that, right? He began to deal with me about giving. So whenever you're giving and you're giving your tithes and you worry about the place that you're giving, as long as you are in constant communication and in communication with God, he will always speak to you. If it is not conducive, if it's not what you should be doing, God will lead you. And you should not be worshiping in a place that God has not led you to be. There's nothing worse than being in a ministry and you're not sure that's where you should be, because you'll either serve and plant seeds that become weeds, or you will not serve and you will become a distraction to the ministry, causing chaos. And I know people from both sides of the wall. I would much rather serve and find out I'm serving in the wrong place than to be somebody who is tearing up something, because I never want to be the cause of somebody's downfall. But as long as you are giving, and you are giving according to God's covenant and the covenant he has with us in tithing, you're giving your 10%. That's obedience. The other thing is, a lot of people will say, I didn't have enough left to give my tithes, which means you're not giving your tithe. Remember that tithing is a faith thing and it's a discipline thing, meaning you give to God first. You don't give to him after you've taken care of everything, because you may not have 10% left. And that brings about another level, another problem, another thing to address. Remember, tithing helps us with discipline. So if you give, or if you pay out everything and you don't even have 10% of your check left, remember, we're talking a dime out of every dollar. In the beginning, if your check is small, it's easy to say that and it's easy to give. But let's just think, a lot of you out here make very good money. Let's just say you bring home, or your gross is $3,000. After $3,000 on a check, you don't have $300 left. Wow. Think about that. Let that sit there. That means that your lifestyle is so great that you are living to the very top. And you're also living without God if you didn't have enough to give him his. But it's a faith thing, so you give to God first. Off the top, before you do and handle everybody else. Remember, God is the one who empowers us to obtain wealth. It is within him that we move, live, and have our very being. He's the one that gives us the talents according to our ability to handle them. So we never want to do anything. We never want to work. We never want to move or anything without God. You want to make sure that you invite him into everything, which is why you give to him first. Anybody can give leftovers, but when you give to God first, you are showing him that you respect him as the giver more than you do the gifts that he's given. You are saying that I understand that you are my source and everything else is just a resource. If you change my resource, I never want to lose connection with you, God, who is my source. So tithing is not just a discipline thing and an obedient thing. It's also a faith thing, and you give to God first. When you give to him first, I promise you, the things that God will do with the money that he blesses you, what he allows you to keep and blesses that money, the things you will see yourself do will blow you away. I'm telling you what I know. I'm not telling you just what I heard or what the word says. I'm speaking from examples. I'm speaking from experience. I have been in situations where I didn't know how things were going to go. That by the natural, if I looked at the numbers, they didn't line up. But trusting God with what I had, regardless of what it looked like, made all the difference. And I'm telling you, it will do the same for you. I'm not going to say you won't have bad times, or you won't have times where you're scared, or have times where you're trying to figure things out. What I am telling you, it is better to give to God first and be in covenant with him, so that you're not trying to figure it out by yourself, than to take your chances and try to trust people in the world to help you figure it out. Because we know God loves us. Everybody else is suspect. So as we put to rest whether or not to tithe, we've established that it is a principle of God, and that it is not something just found in the Old Testament, but that it goes all the way through the Bible. Many times people will say in the New Testament that God does not say tithing, and so it was destroyed with the law. That is not true. Jesus came to fulfill the law. So tithing is still a principle and still a concept. Many people will say, I give out of my heart and maybe I want to give more. Where did it say you couldn't give more? Nobody said that. We just said the minimum. The tithe is what God asks. It's the obedience. That's why we have offering and you have seed planting. When you hear people talking about planting seeds, and we will talk about that as we get to sowing and reaping. Because when you plant seeds, you are planting into ground for a future harvest. Often we like to celebrate a harvest that we have not even planted, we haven't cultivated, we haven't done anything, but we expect a harvest, and that's not how it works. It doesn't work just because you need it or because you cry. It works because you work the principle, you work the soil, you work the word. If you work the word will work. But if you try to do it your own way, then it will not. You'll have, like I said, you have some people that say, well, I want to give more. I give more than 10%. And for some people that's true, but for a lot of people that's not true. They give what's a large amount to themselves. And remember, in the other video, I talked about how $1,000 in the church and $1,000 $1,000 in your secular world is two different things. When you start looking at $1,000 in church, people feel like they are millionaires because it's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. But that same $1,000 would be scoffed on when you try to walk into a designer store trying to buy a bag or the latest bag or the latest jeans or going to a professional NBA game or a football game. That same $1,000 is like, girl, bye. And when we see that, we'll immediately try to raise up and be like, oh no, I have more. We will go in debt trying to please, impress, and appease other people. But that same $1,000 in church makes us roll our eyes and the attitude changes. So it's not about the money. It's about the way we look at the money. Because for most of us, it's like I can't see it. I cannot touch it. You remember the other things that cause us not to tithe? The pride of life, the lust of the eye, and the lust of the flesh. We are conditioned that if we cannot see it, and if we can't see where it goes, then we have wasted the money. That's why we don't invest. Because if you invest in the stock market, I can't see that. You're not going to go around with a sign or an outfit or a shirt that says, I have money in the stocks. We like to look rich, even if we're not rich. We like to look wealthy, even if we're not wealthy. We like to look successful, even when we're far from it. So our pride of life and our lust of the eye and our lust of the flesh will cause us not to invest the same $1,000 that will go and never run dry, that will turn over and over and over. Remember in Malachi, God promises us that I will rebuke the devourer for your sake. I will not allow you to cash your pearl before it's time. I won't allow you to do business at the wrong time. I will block things that you're trying to do if I know it's not going to work. There are so many promises that come with the tithe, and we haven't even gotten to the offering. However, the things that we lust after, the pride of life, the lust of the eye, and the lust of the flesh, all cause us to rather put it where we can see it than place it in places that we know it will work. We know God is a good God. We know that we can't beat him giving. The more we give, the more he's going to give to us. He will always give us things because the same God that allowed us and blessed us to have the tithe to give will continue to nurture the gifts. He will continue to give to people who give back. He will continue to give when you are in covenant with him, whether it be giving you your right mind, whether it be giving you the next idea, whether it's giving you money and you're able to make more money, giving you health so you can continue to make money, giving you resources to develop the ideas that he's giving you that will bring you money. You can never outgive God. So stop worrying about whether or not you should tithe. Stop thinking about it and stop holding on to that 10%. Stop living behind the lie. If you want to give more, there is nothing stopping you. Again, that's where the offering comes in. If the tithe is our obedience, then the offering is our love for God, how much we love and trust him. And once you get past trying to penny pinch and start believing in God and handing that money over, you're going to see a release on your money like never before. Don't let anybody tell you that tithing is not right and that you're just giving your money to the preacher. Again, if you are concerned about where you are planting your money, then you pray and God will always answer your prayers. That's one thing about him. He says, I am a rewarder of them that diligently seek me. When you consistently seek God, when you are consistent about asking, you don't have to worry. He's going to give you answers. And sometimes there are people that will use that as an excuse. To thyself be true. Because you are not fooling anybody. And it's not about fooling the people. It's about being honest with our God, whom we cannot afford to not be in covenant with. Because in him we move, we live, and we have our very being. So remember, tithe and offering, it need not be a discussion because we are giving it to the one who gives us richly all things to enjoy.